history tends to repeat itself.
Denver Broncos select
Los Angeles Chargers select
Bo Nix.
Justin Herbert.
Okay, I'm not calling Bo Nix the next Justin Herbert because those are some lofty expectations that I just don't think are going to be true, but I am going to say that I'm a lot higher on Bo Nix, and I think Bo Nix is being severely underrated. I think the selection of Bo Nix with the 12th overall pick is being severely overhated. I've seen tweets and posts and videos how Bo Nix isn't necessarily a good quarterback, that this was probably the worst quarterback pick in the first round, even with Michael Penix. I don't know. But that's just kind of what I've seen the past few weeks after the NFL draft. And I wanted to come here and give my stance on whole Bo Nix because I'm kind of the complete opposite. How quickly these quarterbacks went off the board, I think it was a good pick. I think it was one of the better picks in the first round when it comes to quarterbacks and needing what you getting, because the Broncos need the quarterback. You cannot go into the season with Zach Wilson as your starter. They needed a quarterback, and I thought Bo Nix was the right pick. I thought Bo Nix was the fourth best quarterback in this draft, and I think to kind of understand my viewpoint a little bit better, I think I should go and give my explanation of what I thought of him as a draft prospect. I'll kind of explain here. Draft prospects, obviously he's a very experienced draft prospect, 61 starts, that's an NCAA record. I think he's great in structure. We saw that with the Oregon team, and we'll talk about the Oregon offense a little later. Good playmaker. I think he can really use his legs well as a playmaker. Again, not Jaden Daniels, not Caleb Williams, more of like a Drake May type of playmaker. He can get out the pocket if he needs to. He can run a read option. He can QB power if you're close to the goal line, And he has the size to have good strength, have good durability, which is good. I think he's a good arm strength. I think he can zip the ball. I think he can get it downfield, which I think is, again, really good. Explain why that's also a good thing as well when we get into talking about the Oregon's offense. He can move a little too quickly through his reads. I think that's a little bit of my hesitation with him. I don't think he works great over the middle, or just I don't think he doesn't target the middle as much as you would want it to, as you would want a quarterback to. And obviously that is a big key piece of playing a quarterback. You got to get the ball into the middle of the field. Not lots of times, but to be impactful, you're going to have to work that middle of the field well too, if you really want to be one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. Again, a ton of short passes, but that all ends up with talking about the Oregon offense, and that's where kind of the comparison that kind of happens with Justin Herbert. I mean, both were number 10, both went to Oregon. Now there's questions about this Oregon offense, once again, that's going to have quarterbacks get the ball out quickly, short passes, play action, RPOs. They won't call too many deep passes. Even though they do, they're going to have those times where they can air the ball out. But again, that's the same question we had about Justin Herbert back in 2020, is he just not being asked to do all this more advanced deep ball, really impressive passing plays, or can he just not do it? And what we've learned, obviously, from the first few seasons of Justin Herbert is that he just wasn't really being asked to do it because he's one of the best deep ball passers in the NFL, So that's one thing. And again, going back to that good arm strength, it's not that he doesn't have the arm strength tangibles to throw downfield. He can. We saw that on multiple occasions, especially to his teammate Troy Franklin, teammate in college football, also in the NFL. We'll get to that a little later. And what also really impressed me was his pro day. And I'm not saying he had this really crazy pro day, and I don't take too much stock in the pro days. I look at them. If they did good, that's good. If they do bad, that's not the great. But it wasn't focused on just throwing the ball really deep, doing these quick plays that they've kind of already scheduled and kind of ran through the process a little bit before the pro day. It was mainly focused on just showing his athleticism as a thrower of the football, showing that he can get in uncomfortable positions and throw the ball well, which I think is what we were wondering if he could do. So that's kind of my overall thoughts on Bo Nix as a prospect and kind of this whole draft process leading up into the 2024 NFL draft. So let's talk about the Broncos a little bit before I kind of get into why I think this is kind of being overhated, Bo Nix at least. Their offensive line should be good. That's a good offensive line to be going into as a quarterback, rookie quarterback. Should have a good running game. They got a good set of running backs, Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin. They drafted Audric Estime, who I think should have a decent role into that running game. Viable receiver options, I question mark, because we don't know what's happening with Courtland Sutton. We don't know if he's going to get the bag from the Broncos. They traded Jerry Jeudy, so that's another loss at wide receiver. So we have no idea what's happening with Courtland Sutton as of now for the Broncos. They got Troy Franklin in the 4th round, which that was a steal in my opinion. But you pair up with Bo Nix, Troy Franklin, college quarterback, college wide receiver. That's great. I've always, ever since the Bengals got Joe Burrow and then drafted Jamar Chase the year after, I've always been a big proponent of like trying to get your quarterback and receiver if that's possible. And obviously, it's going to hard to get it to the level of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, because that is something, right? You would definitely have to not be good 2 years in a row to get something like that. And that's why I was like, last year when the Texans drafted CJ Stroud, obviously before they traded up, I'm like, Jackson Smith-Njigba, he's going to be right there for the 12th overall pick, or whichever pick they had before they traded up for Will Anderson. They also have Marvin Mims, Josh Reynolds, and again, viable wide receiver options. The defense wasn't good last year.
Down run, and they'll dance their way to a 34-10 lead.
To keep it quite frank, they have a young defensive line that I'm really intrigued in. Baron Browning, Jonathan Cooper, Nick Bonito. They drafted Jonah Ellis. They traded for John Franklin Myers. They have Zach Allen as a decent veteran. So, again, young defensive line with a ton of, I'm not going to say ton of potential, but with guys who can still grow and really be an impact player on this defensive line, on this pass rush. So that's what I'm really interested to look at for their defense. They got a bad secondary outside of Patrick Surtain. Obviously he's one of the best cornerbacks in the league. They released Justin Simmons, which doesn't help. That does not help their secondary. That was bad. They drafted Chris Abrams-Drain, who I think can play on the outside in the slot. I think that was a good pick. I forget which round he was drafted in, but I know he was a little bit of a value pick there for me. And then they got Sean Payton, kind of wrapping up about this Broncos team as a whole. And it's hard to kind of look at this, because I don't think he's been a bad coach. There's obviously some off-field things that I'm like, okay, that's probably not the best way to go about it, especially when we're talking about Russell Wilson, the whole Russell Wilson situation. When we're talking about Sean Payton, it's hard to say, because even if it's not the best year for the Broncos, he's not getting fired. Because he kind of has this safety net with Bo Nix, and the Broncos put a lot of capital into Sean Payton, money-wise and also draft capital-wise, so that's another thing. I don't think this is going to be his last year, even if it's a bad, I can't see him getting fired after this year. So here are my thoughts on Bo Nix and kind of where I can see this thing going with Bo Nix in the Broncos this year, future years, and again, why I overall think this Bo Nix has been overhated. I think this pick has been overhated again. I've kind of explained that earlier, but kind of where I'm going with this. Just sitting and working behind that offensive line, I think, is huge for Bo Nix. I really think he can show this again, point guard ability that I think he's shown in college, to just sit and work behind the offensive line, find the open guys, let them play make, and again, that game manager type of feel. But I think he can still add his own flair as a playmaker. Again, with Troy Franklin, Courtland Sutton, hopefully with Courtland Sutton. If not, maybe this year might be not as good as I kind of hope it can be. Again, I don't think it's going to be some rookie of the year numbers, but I think it's going to be impressive, and I think Broncos fans are going to feel happy and comfortable going into the 2025 season. So that's kind of how I expect this first season for Bo Nix to go. Again, sitting and working behind that offensive line, playmaking with hopefully, again, Courtland Sutton, Troy Franklin, Marvin Mims. I think he can take a next step next year, this next year. So that's kind of where I'm on with that. Again, you should hopefully have a good running game that can help out Bo Nix and really take the pressure off of him if need be. I think he can work at the full field as well. I think, deep passes, short passes, again, like I said, middle of the field, I think that's somewhere, a place he'll have to grow. And again, I don't think he's bad at throwing in the middle field. I just wish he did it a little bit more, or kind of trusted himself a little bit more. I think he can really grow with his coaching staff. That's where I see the thing going, where I can see the Broncos going. Yeah, I think it's going to be an average quarterback season this year, but I think the future of this offense with Bo Nix is huge. And I think that's what I'm trying to get at, is the future is really good. I think, though he's, yes, an older quarterback, blah, 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 I still think he has a ton of places to grow. And I think that what makes him very interesting is that he get experienced quarterback, but there's still a ton of places to grow. And so I think he has a chance, if we're talking about the future, to be a top 15 quarterback. And you may question, is that enough to win a Super Bowl? Is that enough to get to the conference championship? That's a question and a whole nother topic for a different video. So that's kind of my thoughts on that. But the Broncos do need to get playmakers on offense. Like I said, I think getting another playmaker with the ball in his hands would be huge, either in the draft next year, free agency. I don't know the free agents for next year, but getting another playmaker I think would be huge for this offense in general. Overall, I think he has the chance to be a pretty solid quarterback this year. Again, nothing groundbreaking, but you're feeling pretty comfortable. He's shown growth from college to the NFL, and you're feeling comfortable about going into the 2025 season if you're a Broncos fan. And that's kind of how I see this first season playing out. After that, if the Broncos make the right moves, if Bo Nix takes the right steps, which I think he can and will do, that's where I really see this pick hitting for them. Again, not immediately, but year 2, year 3, I think the Broncos have a chance to really, really be good with Bo Nix. Now, again, is it harder with, in a division with Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert? That is tough. And I don't think he'll be better than those two. So you're working with the third best quarterback in your division. That's hard to do. It really is hard to do. So I think this team around him really has to be better. But I think Bo Nix is the quarterback in place to allow that to happen. If you get the right guys, if you get the right team, the right defense, this has a chance for the Broncos to take off. So that's kind of where I'm on with Bo Nix. That's my idea. I think the pick has been overhated. I think that's kind of, again, where my stance is. I think this was an underrated pick. And I think people should be talking about Bo Nix a little bit more. And I think the NFL community will after this season. So that's my thoughts. Hope you guys enjoyed. What are your thoughts on Bo Nix? If you like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.